This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Haba. We're continuing in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Hilchos Tefillin, Siman Lamed Beis. We are up to Seif Chaf Daled. Seif Chaf Daled. Mutter. Okay. Mutter Lichtov al Makoim Hagerer. You're allowed to write on the place that you scrape, the al makoim hamachak, and on the place. Now, and on the place that you erase, afilu azkara, you could even write a name of Hashem. V'lo yimchok b'oidaylach, do not erase while it's wet. Ela yavshenu yafa, make sure it dries well. Ki oz yigarer bakal, because then it scrapes easily. The lo yishar lo yisham roisham, and it will not leave any image. Okay, so actually, what's interesting is that this Sif is on a different diagram. So let's see what this means. Let's see the Mishna Berura. Sifkat and Kuf Yud Gimel. Hagerer mikri kishagero mishenes yavish. Gerer is when you scrape it when it's dry. V'hamachak mikri kishamachar ba'odelach. Machak, erasing, is when it's wet. So it's saying you're allowed to write on a place that's scraped or on a place that's erased. A scraped is dry, erased is wet. And that which it says do not erase, Eitza Tova Kamasan. It's just giving you Eitza Tova. So okay, so the example they give in the diagram, let's say you wrote V'ha'avarta kol peter rechem b'char. It's not supposed to say kol peter rechem b'char. It's supposed to say kol peter rechem l'Hashem. So you could erase the word b'char, and you could write Hashem's name. Even though you're writing Hashem's name on a place that was scraped, yeah, you're allowed to do that. Okay, the Pri Megadim says that if there's any remnant of ink, afil b'diavad ichshash b'zeh. Even b'diavad, there's a concern. V'afilu teva ba'alma, delay askar. Even a regular word that's not a mention of Hashem's name. Asr lichtov al makom zeh, you can't write on this place. So you better erase it really well. You better erase it really well. So again, we'll try this. Here you wrote the word, you're supposed to write the word that has an aleph nun. Instead you wrote an aleph taf. So you erased the taf and you wrote the nun. But sort of you could see in the background, a very faded taf in the background. The Pri Megadim says that's a problem, b'diavad. Now, I would have thought that whenever you scrape, there's gonna be some roishim over there. It's not like you're using whiteout, you're scraping. But apparently, if there's a real remnant, it's a serious problem. Okay, let us proceed to Sif Chaf Hey. Kol Sif Chaf Hey already. We could use our new pictures. Okay. Fine. Any letter that's written incorrectly, and the surah is not on it. Let's say the regel of the aleph is touching the roof of the aleph. Okay, like in diagram 1. You see this? You see where my cursor is? The leg of the aleph should not be touching the body of the aleph. It should be like this, right? You see over here where my cursor is in Daled, there should be a yud, and it just touches with a little point. But here, the whole body of the foot is touching the roof. Oy penei ha'aleph, or the face of the aleph, bifnim, on the interior, begag shetachteha, in the roof below it. Let's see if we could give a good diagram. Okay, that what we just read is Daled. You see Daled? You see my cursor is? This is what is called Pnei Ha-Aleph Begagai. The face of the Aleph, the top yod is the face of the Aleph, is touching the roof of the Aleph. Bifnim Begagsha Tachteha. Oi, or. Now the oi case is on the next page. So let's stick to this page. So far we saw two cases where the bottom leg is touching the roof or the top leg. Instead of it being a small point of attachment, the whole leg, the whole body of it is attached. Either like in diagram Aleph, where my cursor is, or in diagram Dalet. Let's see the Mishna Berura. So we didn't even learn what you're supposed to do yet. Basically, I'll give you a heads up. After you wrote after it, you go back and fix it, it's going to be a problem of Shaloi Kisidran. Why? Because this Aleph, Rabbi said, does not have the tzura of an Aleph. This is not like two letters that are attached. Remember, we learned two letters are attached. Each letter still has the tzura. Now it's just a halachic requirement to separate the letters. So that is not a problem of Shaloi Kisidran if you wrote after it. But this Aleph, in diagram Aleph, where this Aleph in diagram Dalet does not have the tzura of a Aleph, if you're going to scrape it, like over here, then and fix it, then it ain't going to be good. This is going to be a problem of Shaloi Kisidran. Let's see the Mishna Berura, Sivkat and Kuf Yadal. Sif Zeh Yivur by Din Shaloi Kisidran. This Sif will explain the laws of Shaloi Kisidran. The Inyanav Aruchin. Its subject is long. The Echlo B'Ktsara B'Din Zeh. The Echlo B'Ktsara. I will encompass it very briefly. B'Din Zeh Yesh By Gimel Pratim. This din has 3 details. Number 1, Aleph. Im yesh kilkel be'eza ois. If there was some kind of problem in a letter, whether it happened when you're writing it or after you write it. This comes from Pimgan B'Psicha. Im nira la'ayin. If it is apparent to the eye. Kol she'ein surasei alaf. If it does not have the image of the letter. Kagoin yud shechasarlei regel yaminai. Let's say a yud that's missing its right leg. Okay? Baruch Hashem, we have these pictures. Look in, this is diagram 2, Aleph. So this yud is missing its right leg. See that? Shin shechasarlei yud echad. Or a shin. See the shin of Moshe? It's missing one of the yuds. A shin has 3 heads, 3 yuds on top of each branch. It's missing one of its yud. V'cholki haygavna shechasar ba'ois eze davar ad sha'ideze ein tmunasei alav afilu ein nidma mishum zel ois acher. It's not like if somebody would say, "What letter is that?" Oh, to me it looks like a final pay. No, you know it's a shin. It's not like you don't know what letter it's in. When we say it doesn't have the tzur of a letter, it doesn't mean you don't know what letter it is. You know what letter it is, but it doesn't have the tzur of a shin. The kasav lefanav, and then you wrote before it, meaning there are letters written after. There's no way to fix it. Even if a kid could read the letter, it's going to be a problem of Shaloi Kisidran. Certainly, if because of what it's missing, it looks like a different letter. Look in diagram Zion. You're supposed to write Adam. You wrote Aram, basically. You try to write a Dalet, but it looks like a Resh, and now it looks like a different letter. Oy Beis Doim Elachaf. Or look, you were supposed to write B'nai. You wrote Kinei. Oy Ches Sheberegel Smoloi. Or let's say the letter Ches, that on its left leg, Yesh Hefsik Bein Haregel Agag, there's a separation between the foot and the roof. Venera Kehei. Here, look in this diagram where my cursor is, which is diagram Chaf. You wrote the word Rechem, but the Ches of Rechem, the leg of the second Zion is not touching the roof, so in a way it looks like a hay. Or the tzaddik, you see in Ois Mem, The yud of the tzaddik is yeah. By the way, the tzaddik looks like a nun with a yud, so the yud is not touching the nun over here. V'nir le'ein kol ki yud v'nun. It looks like a yud and a nun, but not like. In other words, you say, "Well, what do you mean? It looks like a tzaddik." No, if it's not touching the nun, it looks like two letters, a yud and a nun. Any situation where a tinuk doesn't help, tikkun doesn't help either. So that's the first category. Second category. The first category is it doesn't look like the tzura of the ois, and therefore tikkun won't help if you wrote after it. Second category. Let's say because it got corrupted or missing, the tzura was not damaged, legamri, completely. Let's say there's a very small interruption. It still looks like the letter. There's just like, like a hairline fracture in the letter, right? If you look at it in the X-ray, you see there's a fracture in the letter. Let's say the yudin on the aleph or the shin, v'ragle hatavin noigim begufa eis. So let's say like this. The yudin on the aleph, the shin, or the taf. So the example that, let's say you see this vav over here in diagram 3, number aleph, the vav, there's like a hairline fracture over here between the roof and the leg. Or look at this aleph in gimel. There's like a hairline fracture between the pinei ha'aleph, the top yud, and the gag. Or in this shin, the middle branch, there's a little hairline fracture. So then, im tinoik, deloy chacham v'loy tipish. That's a good Rashi Tevos. I'm glad I got that one. Chut stands for chacham v'loy tipish. Like chacham v'loy tipish. A tinoik he's not too smart, he's not too foolish. Makirim, even though the fact that a child could read it doesn't render the ois kosher, it's still possible because there's a space. But mishum de insurasay ala b'shleimus, it doesn't completely look like the right letter. Al kapanim mahani zeh, it's enough that the kid could read it. It helps enough. The nisha alav ikar tsurasay, that the ikar surah remains on it. Le'enian sheyimuter l'saknai. It is permitted in a way that you're allowed to correct it, you're allowed to fix it. V'lo yikra shalai Kisidran, and this is not considered shalai Kisidran. So, this is the second category. The second category is it does have the tzuras ha'ois, but not tzuras ha'ois b'shleimus. Now, the bringing a child to recognize the letter won't be machshir the letter, but it will be machshirit that you're able to fix it and there's no problem of shaloi kisidran. That's the second category. Third category, v'yesh oid oifen shlishi, and that's number 4. Number 4, v'yesh oid oifen shlishi, she'af al pi she'ikar tzurasa yesh alav. The ikar tzur is on it. V'tina karei la'ois, and the tina karei afilachi lo mahani le shum tikkun. No tikkun would help. K'goin ois shenifsal be'iza davar shetikunei hu ligrar miktsasai ulachgoisvay mechadash. Meaning, it looks like the letter, and a child could read it as a letter, but tikkun will not help because the only way to fix it is it's not enough to scrape. It's not enough to write in. You need to scrape and write. Let's say like this. The hey and the kuf. So these two examples, where a hey is basically a dalet and an upside down yud, but they shouldn't be touching. And the kuf is, I don't know, like a half a chaf and a zayin underneath, but they're not supposed to be touching. It's touching above even a hair's breadth. The tikkun is you gotta scrape the whole foot. Why can't you just separate it? Why? Because it's chak tuchais. You can't just separate it. Because by separating it's chak tuchais. V'chein naga regel ha'alef begag ha'alef. Let's say like this in number v'chein naga regel ha'alef begag ha'alef. I guess which tzir? Here, look in Aleph. Where there you have to erase the whole thing and write it over. V'ira, and it came out. You wrote letters after it. You can't fix it. You have to scrape everything that was written b'psul. So whatever you're going to fix afterwards is not in order. So this is the general hakdama. Now we will endeavor to explain the sif. Kol ois shehi ksuva v'chulu v'adim imeskalkala achakach. Okay, Rabbi said that was the hakdama. So in other words, 3 rules. Rule number 1 is any letter that does not have the tsura, and then you wrote afterwards, if you want to help it, it does it. If you want to fix it, you cannot fix it because there'll be a problem of Shelo Kisidran, even though a child could read it as the letter. However, if it does not lose its tsura, because there's only like a hairline fracture, but it looks like the tsura, then if the child could read it, it's not kosher yet, but you're allowed to fix it. However, in a situation where a child could read the letter and has the tsura, but where you're going to need to scrape and rewrite because of chak tuchais, that will still be a problem of Shelo Kisidran. Okay, Rabbi Sai, thanks for joining us, and Bez Hashem, hopefully these diagrams will help us out. Okay, shkayach. And we're gonna stop recording, right?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.